let's see if we can wrap up part 3 of the discourse on method. Descartes still sitting in the stove-heated room, and he's come up with his rules for his new method for banishing error from his mind and achieving as much knowledge as possible, though he can't apply it properly till part 4 of the discourse. And now he's going over his provisional code of morals, the final point of which is this. Finally, to conclude this code of morals, I took it upon myself to review the various occupations that men have in this life in order to try to choose the best one. And, not wanting to say anything about the occupations of others, I thought I could not do better than to continue in that very one in which I found myself, that is to say, spending my whole life cultivating my reason and advancing as far as I could in the knowledge of the truth, following the method I have prescribed to myself. So, this final point of his provisional code of morals is to confirm that the life spent in pursuit of wisdom is the best life. And he confirmed it. So now let's go to these interesting remarks at the end of part 3. Descartes says, "When I thus assured myself of these maxims and put them to one side along with the truths of the faith, which have always held first place among my beliefs, I judged that, as for the rest of my opinions, I could freely undertake to rid myself of them. And inasmuch as I hope to be able to reach my goal better by conversing with men than by staying shut up any longer in the stove-heated room, where I had had all these thoughts, the winter was not yet over when I set out again on my travels. And in all the 9 years that followed, I did nothing but wander here and there in the world, trying to be more a spectator than an actor, etc., etc." Okay, so he's been sitting in the stove-heated room. We're on page 16 here, towards the end of part 3. He's been sitting in the stove-heated room since the beginning of part 2 on page 7. He's been sitting in the stove-heated room in Germany, wasn't it, for a lot of pages. And he's just been sitting and thinking about the rules for the method for gaining knowledge and banishing error from his mind, and the provisional code of morals to live by until he can find some certain opinions to live by. And he's going to spend as long as it takes applying this method, but not applying it too systematically, and going by this provisional code of morals, which, as you recall, in its first principle said, stick with your old religion. So he's sticking with his old religion, and he's sticking with his provisional code of morals and his method of pursuing knowledge, but none of this is a permanent plan. All of this is until he can find certainty, and that's going to require applying that method with those rules he talked about in part 3 of the discourse to the very foundations of knowledge, philosophy, and that's what's going to happen next in part 4 of the discourse. In the meantime, he spends 9 years doing nothing but wandering here and there in the world, trying to be more a spectator than an actor, and doing nothing except applying this method, but not too systematically, and trying to get rid of as many opinions as possible, but excluding the truths of the faith in accordance with his provisional code of morals. And well, I could just stop there. That might be all we really need to say about the end of part 3, but let's just check for more. He says he's not imitating the skeptics who doubt merely for the sake of doubting. On the contrary, my entire plan tended simply to give me assurance and to cast aside the shifting earth and sand in order to find rock or clay. Now, this is important. Doubt is not for the sake of doubt. Doubt is for the sake of certainty. That's what Descartes is doing. His method is doubt. His purpose is certainty. But we'll talk about that more in part 4. In destroying... And just as in tearing down an old house, one usually saves the wreckage for use in building a new one, similarly, in destroying all those opinions of mine that I judged to be poorly founded, I made various observations and acquired many experiences that have since served me in establishing more certain opinions. I guess that maybe is not making the point I was expecting to make, but I'll make that point anyway, and then I'll comment on what I just read. He's going to eliminate any number of old opinions, but he may restore them in his new structure of knowledge, but that's pending the investigation to come, applying his method to the foundations of knowledge philosophy, part 4. He's working on getting rid of poorly founded opinions and finding more solid ones, etc. Nevertheless, those 9 years slipped by before I had as yet taken any stand regarding the difficulties commonly debated among learned men, or begun to seek the foundations of any philosophy that was more certain than the commonly accepted one. In other words, he's pursuing truth. It's a great life, but it's not enough. He has to form some opinions on those really big philosophical questions that are at the foundations of knowledge. Again, he's setting us up for part 4. There's rumors about how knowledgeable or wise he is. I thought it necessary to try by every means to render myself worthy of the reputation that was bestowed on me. Sounds kind of like Socrates. And etc. He says something about retiring to a country where the long duration of the war has led to the establishment of such well-ordered discipline that the armies quartered here seem to serve only to make one enjoy the fruits of peace with even greater security. And in the midst of a crowded city, he can live a solitary life, solitary and as withdrawn a life as I could in the remotest deserts. In other words, he's setting himself up now to finally get to that next crucial step, applying his method to the foundations of knowledge. And if you want to know now, he's going to be in Amsterdam, according to Marginalia. And off the top of my head, I can't remember where I learned that this references to Amsterdam. But it's probably a reliable source. I probably picked that tidbit up in grad school. Anyway, next part 4 in the next video, and the exciting application of his method of doubt for the sake of certainty to the very foundations of all knowledge. Thanks for watching. See you then.